She is just the guard dog for this family. Useful. But you do not let them sit on the furniture. My sister, Mina, laughed as she kicked a velvet cushion right into the puddle of red wine I was scrubbing off the floor. I looked up from my knees, waiting for my boyfriend, Justin, to defend me. Instead, he took a sip of his drink and smirked at her. He said, "She is as dry as her financial reports, babe. You are the real woman, Mina." My hands stopped moving. I did not cry. I did not scream. I just stood up, looked at them with dead eyes, and walked out the door. The guard dog had just broken its chain. People ask why I stayed so long, why I let them treat me like furniture in my own life. The answer is simple. I was not raised to be a daughter. I was raised to be an investment. I am a luxury real estate manager. My days start at 5 in the morning and end when my eyes blur from reading contracts. I sell penthouses to billionaires, smiling while my feet bleed in heels, eating cold takeout at my desk while everyone else is sleeping. I built a career on grit and caffeine, assuming that if I worked hard enough, my family would finally respect me. But respect was not the currency they wanted. $45,000. That is the exact figure I wired to the Plaza Hotel 6 months ago. My father called me, his voice trembling, saying his liquidity was tied up in a temporary hold. He promised that if I just covered the deposit, they would pay me back the second the bond matured. I knew there was no bond. I knew the money was gone the moment I pressed send. But I did it anyway. Because that is what the scapegoat does. We pay for the peace we are never allowed to enjoy. While I was drowning in paperwork to cover that transfer, my sister was living in a fantasy. I remember the dress fitting 2 weeks ago. I sat in the corner, answering emails, while Mina spun around in a gown that cost more than my first car. She frowned at her reflection and sighed, saying it looked cheap. She complained that for only $10,000, she felt like she was wearing a tablecloth. My mother rushed to fix the hem, cooing that they would find something better because money was no object. Money was no object because it was not theirs. It was mine. Then there was Justin, the man who was supposed to be on my team. A week before the party, he came to my office with that puppy dog look he had perfected. He told me he had a final interview for a marketing director position. A big break. He asked to borrow my American Express card just for a suit, promising to pay me back with his first check. I gave it to him. I wanted him to succeed. I wanted us to be a power couple. He came home that night without a suit bag. Instead, he was wearing a pair of limited edition designer sneakers that cost $1,200. When I asked about the interview, he shrugged and said the vibe was off. But the shoes were an investment in his personal brand. That night, lying in bed next to him, I felt a heavy stone settle in my gut. I realized I was not sleeping next to a partner. I was sleeping next to a dependent. To my parents, I was a bank. To my sister, I was a servant. And to Justin, I was a safety net he could jump on without ever worrying about breaking. They did not love me. They loved the access I gave them. And as long as the checks cleared, they would keep smiling. But the moment I closed the vault, I knew exactly what would happen. The morning after I walked out of the penthouse, my phone exploded. It was my mother. In the past, seeing her name on my screen would have triggered a physical reaction. My heart would race. My palms would sweat. I would mentally rehearse apologies for crimes I did not commit. I was conditioned to de-escalate her, to absorb her anger so the family could stay whole. But this time, nothing. I felt like I was watching a stranger's phone ring. I answered on the third ring, putting it on speaker while I continued typing a contract for a client. I did not say hello. She screamed into the phone, asking how I dared walk out on my sister's big night. She called me selfish and claimed Mina was devastated and crying her eyes out because of my attitude. I knew Mina was not crying. Mina was probably sleeping off a hangover in the 500 thread count sheets I paid for. The old Jenny would have begged. She would have tried to explain her pain to people who were committed to misunderstanding her. But that version of me died on that wine-stained floor. I took a sip of my black coffee. I waited for her to take a breath. Then, I said one word. Okay. The silence on the other end was heavy. It was the sound of a fuse burning out without a bomb to detonate. She sputtered, asking if that was all I had to say, demanding to know if I admitted I was wrong. I kept my voice flat and completely devoid of emotion. I told her she was right, that I was stressed, and that I would do better. There was a long pause. She did not know what to do. She wanted a fight. She needed my tears to validate her anger. Without my resistance, her rage had nowhere to land. She huffed, sounding disappointed, and told me to fix it by sending Mina flowers and transferring the rest of the venue fee by Friday. I said understood, and I hung up. I did not send flowers, and I definitely did not transfer the money. That evening, Justin came home. He walked through the door smelling like expensive cologne and guilt. He went straight for the gaslight, a tactic he had perfected over 3 years. He sat next to me on the sofa, putting a hand on my knee. His touch felt like ice. He used his softest voice to say, we needed to talk about my mental state. He claimed I was manic the night before and that it was embarrassing. He told me he and Mina were worried about me, that I was seeing things that were not there, and suggested I see a therapist for my jealousy. He waited for the explosion. He needed me to scream that I was not crazy so he could look calm and reasonable. He needed the fight to make himself the victim. I looked at him. I really looked at him. I saw the faint smear of glitter on his collar that he missed. I saw the man I thought I would marry. And for the first time, I did not see a partner. I saw a parasite in designer sneakers. I forced a smile. A dead, empty smile. I became a gray rock. Uninteresting, unresponsive, and impenetrable. I told him he was right. I told him I had been working too hard and my mind was playing tricks on me. I said I was just so tired. His shoulders dropped. Relief washed over his face. He smiled back, patting my leg. He thought he had reset the game. He thought the automated teller machine was fixed and ready to dispense cash again. He stood up, checking his phone, saying he was going to meet the guys to blow off steam. He told me to get some rest. I told him to have fun. He did not know he was walking out of a relationship and into a trap. Because when you stop fighting, you start watching. And when you start watching, you see everything. The trap was not complicated. It did not rely on high-tech gadgets or illegal hacking. It relied entirely on the one thing my sister possessed in abundance: vanity. 2 days before the wedding, I told Mina she could host her final bachelorette sleepover at the model penthouse. She squealed, already imagining the social media photos. I told her there was just one condition. I explained that the company tightened their policy, and because of the artwork and the imported Carrera marble, we needed a standard insurance liability waiver signed by the primary guest. Mina rolled her eyes, scrolling past the text, without reading a single word. She accused me of acting like she would trash the place, reminding me she was not clumsy like I was. I kept my voice flat, and agreed with her, but insisted that if a vase broke, it would cost $50,000. I told her I could not sign for that, so she had to. She huffed and signed it. She did not know that by signing that document, she had just legally consented to 3 things. 1. She accepted full financial responsibility for any damages. 2. She acknowledged that under the security and safety clause, the premises were under 24-hour high-definition audio and video surveillance. And 3. She agreed to a conduct clause stating that any illegal activity on the premises would void her wedding venue contract, which I had countersigned as the guarantor. The moment the screen flashed confirmed. The legal trap was shut. Now, I needed the financial one. Enter Justin. He texted me at noon asking for the credit card because the groomsmen needed matching silk ties and scotch. He claimed he left his wallet at the gym. I told him to pick it up from my desk. He picked it up at 1 o'clock. At 2:15, my phone buzzed with a fraud alert. A charge for $3,500 at the St. Regis Hotel. He texted immediately, claiming he booked the groomsmen holding suite for the wedding morning. He said it was pricey, but worth it for the photos. It was a good lie. But he forgot that I know every hotel manager in the city. I picked up my office phone and dialed the front desk. I asked Marcus if a Justin Miller had just booked a groomsman suite. There was a pause, the sound of typing. And then Marcus's voice dropped to a whisper. He told me there was no groomsman suite. He confirmed that Mr. Miller booked the honeymoon jacuzzi package for that night, and listed the guest name as Mina. Check-in was 20 minutes ago. I asked him to send me the folio. I hung up. I did not scream. I did not throw the phone. I felt the cold, hard satisfaction of a forensic accountant finding the missing zero. I opened my laptop and logged into the Penthouse Smart Home admin portal. I had the legal right to monitor the feed for liability purposes. I clicked Live View. There they were. Walking into the living room I had decorated. Justin was popping a bottle of champagne charged to my card. Mina was laughing, spinning around in her white robe. The audio was crystal clear. Justin remarked on how nice the place was, asking if I could get them a discount on a unit like that once they were married. Mina laughed, sipping her wine. She told him that once the ring was on her finger, they would make Brandon buy them whatever they wanted. She said I was just the starter fund, and Brandon was the retirement plan. I watched them toast to my destruction. Then, calmly, steadily, I moved my mouse and clicked download. I had the video. I had the audio. I had the contract. And I had the credit card receipt. They were partying in a cage. And they did not even know I held the key. The church smelled like expensive lilies and lies. My parents had insisted on the cathedral downtown. The one with the 60-foot vaulted ceilings and the marble altar. It was the perfect stage for a fairy tale. Or a public execution. 30 minutes before the organ music was scheduled to start, I walked into the groom's holding room. Brandon was adjusting his cufflinks. He looked up, smiling when he saw me, expecting a sisterly pep talk. I did not smile back. I walked over to the mahogany table and placed a black leather folder in front of him. It was heavy. I told him I was not there to wish him luck. I was there to give him a choice. He frowned, looking from me to the folder, asking what it was. I told him it was data, audio transcripts from the penthouse, bank records from my credit card, and a timeline of exactly where his fiancée and my boyfriend had been for the last 48 hours. I saw the confusion in his eyes, followed by a flicker of fear. He was a chief financial officer. He knew how to read a balance sheet. He knew that when someone hands you a file this thick, it is never good news. I told him to read it, to do the math, and then to decide if he still wanted to walk down that aisle. I turned and walked out. I did not wait for him to read it. I did not need to see his heart break. I just needed him to sharpen the axe. Half an hour later, the ceremony began. Mina looked stunning. I will give her that. She floated down the aisle in the dress I paid for, clutching a bouquet of white roses. My mother was dabbing her eyes in the front row, whispering about how perfect everything was. Justin stood on the groom's side, looking smug in his tuxedo, winking at Mina as she reached the altar. Brandon stood there like a statue. His face was pale, his jaw locked so tight I could see the muscle twitching. But nobody noticed. They just thought it was nerves. Then came the vows. Mina went first. She took the microphone, her eyes glistening with practiced tears. She told Brandon he was her rock and her shelter. She promised to be honest, loyal, and true, for as long as they both should live. The guests sighed. My mother squeezed my hand, whispering about what an angel she was. I whispered back, "Just wait." The priest turned to Brandon. He asked if Brandon took Mina to be his lawfully wedded wife. The silence stretched for 1 second, then 2, then 5. Brandon did not look at Mina. He looked at the sound technician in the balcony, a guy he had hired personally. Brandon gave a single, sharp nod. He stepped back from the altar, pulling the microphone with him. He told the priest that he had a different vow. Mina laughed nervously, asking what he was doing. He said he wanted everyone to hear her real vows. A screech of feedback cut through the air. Then, the speakers exploded with sound. It was not music. It was a recording. Crystal clear. High definition. My sister's voice boomed through the church. The acoustics amplified every cruel syllable. She said Brandon was just a pathetic automated teller machine. She said once the ring was on, she would drain his accounts so she and Justin could travel. She repeated that I was just the starter fund, and Brandon was the retirement plan. Then came Justin's voice, lazy and arrogant. He called her evil, and said he loved it. Then, the sound of kissing. Wet, sloppy, undeniable kissing. The silence that followed was heavy enough to crush bones. 300 guests sat frozen. The priest's mouth hung open. Mina's face went from flushed to ghost white in a heartbeat. She looked at the speakers, then at Brandon, terrified. She shrieked that it was fake, claiming he edited it, and that he was crazy. Justin stood up, trying to look tough, yelling to turn it off, and claiming it was slander. Brandon raised a hand. He did not yell. He did not lose his cool. He was pure corporate ice. He announced to the crowd that the wedding was cancelled. He explained that officially, this was no longer a private event. It was just a room full of people he was not paying for. He signaled to the back of the church. 4 large men in black suits, private security, started walking down the aisle. Justin yelled to get them out of there. Brandon pulled a document from his jacket pocket and told Justin that the security team was actually there for him. He walked up to Mina, who was trembling, clutching her dress. He handed her a piece of paper. He told her it was an invoice for $45,000. The venue, the catering, the flowers. He explained that according to the liability waiver she signed with my company, any cancellation caused by her misconduct transferred the full financial liability to her. He told her she owed me for $45,000, payable immediately. Mina stared at the paper, her hands shaking so hard she dropped it. And then Brandon turned to Justin. He pointed to the side exit, where 2 uniformed police officers had just stepped inside. He told Justin that those officers were not there for the wedding. He explained he had handed them the file on the $3,500. Justin charged to my card yesterday. He said that was not a gift. It was felony credit card fraud. Justin's smugness vanished. He looked at the cops, then at the door, realizing there was no way out. The security guards reached the altar. One took Justin by the arm. The other gestured for Mina to move. Mina sobbed, begging our parents to do something. My parents sat paralyzed, shrinking into their pew, too ashamed to move. I sat in the second row, smoothing my dress. I watched the security team drag my screaming sister and my criminal boyfriend down the center aisle. I watched the guests turn on them, their whispers turning into a roar of judgment. I did not look away. I watched every second of it. It was the most beautiful ceremony I had ever attended. The parking lot outside the cathedral was a chaotic sea of confused guests and flashing hazard lights. I was halfway to my car when I felt a hand claw at my shoulder. It was my mother. Her face was twisted into a mask of pure hatred, her mascara running in black streaks down her cheeks. My father stood behind her, shaking with rage. She screamed, asking how I could be so selfish, accusing me of humiliating them in front of the entire city. My father stepped forward. His finger pointed in my face. He yelled that we were a family, and that I should have handled this privately. He said I should not call the police on my own blood, and that I had destroyed my sister's life. I looked at them, really looked at them. They did not care that Justin was a felon. They did not care that Mina had planned to rob my future husband blind. They did not care about the lies or the theft. They only cared that the neighbors had seen the handcuffs. I calmly reached up and removed my mother's hand from my shoulder. I brushed the fabric of my coat where she had touched me. I told them I did not ruin anything. I said the truth ruined it. I just turned on the lights. My father yelled at me not to get smart, telling me I was cut off and out of the family. I laughed. It was a genuine, dry laugh. I told him I had cut him off 6 months ago, but he just did not notice because the checks were still clearing. I told him that since we were discussing assets, we should talk about the house on Elm Street. They froze. The house they had lived in for 5 years. The house they told everyone they owned. I reminded them that the deed was in my name. I bought it. I paid the mortgage. And as of that morning, I had listed it for sale. My real estate agent would be there on Monday to put up the sign. I told them they had 30 days to vacate. My mother gasped, clutching her chest, asking where they would go. I told them I heard Mina was looking for a roommate. I said she was going to need help paying that $45,000 debt, so they should go support her. I asked if that was not what families do. I walked to my car and got in. I watched them in the rearview mirror, 2 small, angry figures standing in an empty parking lot. I took out my phone. I went to my contacts. I selected Mom, Dad, Mina, and Justin. I hit block. Then, I started the engine and drove away. The gavel hit the wood block with a sound that felt like a heartbeat restarting. It took 6 months for the legal dust to settle. But when it did, the picture was crystal clear. The Superior Court of New York ordered Mina to pay restitution in the amount of $45,000 to the event planning company, plus legal fees. Because she could not pay, the judge ordered a garnishment of 25% of her wages for the next 7 years. My sister, the girl who refused to wear a dress that cost $10,000, is now working double shifts as a receptionist at a dental office to pay for a party that never happened. As for Justin, the district attorney was less forgiving. Because the credit card fraud involved crossing state lines for the hotel booking, it became a federal offense. He took a plea deal. 18 months in a minimum security facility upstate, followed by 3 years of probation. The marketing director job he wanted? Gone. His personal brand? Destroyed. I remember sitting in the back of the courtroom when they led him away. He looked back at me, his eyes pleading, looking for the woman who used to fix everything. He was waiting for me to jump up, to call a lawyer, to write a check. I just checked my watch. I had a lunch reservation at 1 o'clock. But the real ending of this story is not about courtrooms or prison cells. It is about what happened 3 weeks ago. I received a letter in the mail. The return address was the correctional facility in Otisville. The handwriting was messy. Desperate scrawls that I recognized immediately. It was from Justin. I stood in my kitchen, holding the envelope. The old Jenny would have torn it open. She would have looked for a reason to forgive. She would have read his excuses about how he was confused or pressured or how he missed us. She would have let his words plant a seed of guilt in her chest. But I am not the old Jenny. I looked at the envelope. I did not feel anger. I did not feel sadness. I felt absolutely nothing. It was just paper. It was just trash. I walked over to the shredder I keep by my desk. I fed the unopened envelope into the machine. I watched the blades chew through his name, his inmate number, and whatever lies he had written inside. I did not need to read it. I already had my closure. The closure was the sound of the paper tearing. That night, I hosted a dinner party at my new apartment. Not a penthouse, but a place that I own, filled with furniture that nobody kicks. Around the table sat my new family. Not people who share my DNA, but people who share my values. There was Sarah, my mentor from the agency. There was David, a friend who helped me move boxes in the rain without asking for a dime. There was Elena, who brought the wine just because she wanted to share it. When the bill for the takeout arrived, I instinctively reached for my wallet. but David stopped my hand. He told me to put it away, laughing. He said they split everything there, and that I knew the rules. I looked around the table. No one was waiting for me to pay. No one was calculating what they could take from me. They were just there. It was the quietest, most peaceful moment of my life. And in that silence, I finally understood what I had been buying all those years. I was trying to buy love, because I thought I was too broken to get it for free. So, I want to speak to you now. Yes, you, listening to this in your car, or your bedroom, or while you are doing the dishes. I know you. I know you because I was you. You are the one who fixes everyone's problems. You are the one who loans money you cannot afford to lose. You are the one who stays silent when they hurt you, because you are terrified that if you speak up, they will leave. You think you are being nice. You think you are being loyal. But I need you to hear this. Rule number 1. Givers must set limits, because takers rarely do. My sister and my ex-boyfriend did not have a stop button. They would have taken my money, my house, my career, and my sanity, until there was nothing left but a husk. They did not stop because they were evil. They did not stop because I never built a wall. If you lie down like a doormat, do not be surprised when people wipe their muddy boots on you. You have to be the one to lock the door. Rule number 2. Receipts are the only closure you need. Stop waiting for them to apologize. Stop waiting for them to admit they were wrong. They will not. Narcissists will rewrite history to make themselves the victim. My parents still tell relatives that I abandoned them in their time of need. They still paint me as the villain. And that is fine. Let them talk. I have the bank statements. I have the court orders. I have the truth. When you have the receipts, you do not need their validation. You have reality. And finally, rule number 3. Loyalty is a two-way street, not a suicide mission. We are taught that family is everything, that blood is thicker than water. But sometimes, blood is just biology. True family is not determined by whose last name you share. It is determined by who stands next to you when the check bounces. It is determined by who defends you when you are not in the room. If you are setting yourself on fire just to keep someone else warm, you are not a hero. You are ash. I walked away from the people who raised me, and it was the hardest thing I ever did. I cried. I doubted myself. I felt like a phantom limb was missing. But then, the healing started. My bank account grew. My anxiety vanished. My smile became real. I lost a sister, a boyfriend, and 2 parents. But I found something much more valuable. I found Jenny, and looking at her in the mirror today, I can finally say, she was worth every penny. So, tell me, who in your life is asking you to pay for their mistakes? Who is making you feel like a guard dog instead of a person? Take a look at the bill they are handing you, and ask yourself if you are finally ready to stop paying.